So I want to discuss the second crime-related story of today for my video channel. Um, I should rephrase the grammar there, I know, but sort of distracted because I was looking at the TV screen. Anyway, this report is a few months old, but the issues of figures still relevant. I'm just going to read out. This is from ITV News. So just bear with me, please, while I read this out. A Polish man was rushed to hospital with serious head injuries after being attacked by a group of up to 20 young men in what police have described as a racially motivated attack. The 28-year-old man was found unconscious by police at around 9:30 p.m. on Friday after being kicked and punched by the gang. This was back in September. Officers were called to the scene in Alliance Street in Armley, Leeds, after someone reported seeing a large group of young men aged 18 to 20 surrounding a Polish man who was bleeding on the floor. The victim and his friend were in nearby town street when they were confronted by the young men before the victim ran away and was chased into Alliance Street by his attackers. The man suffered a cut to his head and is receiving treatment in hospital. And the report goes on to say that Theresa May wanted to reassure her Polish counterpart that hate crimes would not be tolerated in the UK and they have no place in the UK. A few things to say about this. Firstly, it is a few months old. Um, Secondly, some people will say, well, how can we be sure it's a hate crime? It might be random thuggery. Um, my response was also to question that, but I think if the police are going to call it hate crime, more likely than not, they'll be working on some sort of information that indicates that it is. Um, it is true that you get cases which could be opportunism, and it may well be that it is just a coincidence that the victim happens to be an ethnic minority. But I do believe that there are people post Brexit who have used Brexit as an excuse for this sort of thuggery. Um, and I think it would be naive to claim otherwise. And what I would say to Polish people watching this or hearing about these sort of things, firstly, the vast majority of the 17 million people who voted to leave the EU are not racists. They just aren't. Unfortunately, there are a minority of low-life scumbags who I think will use it as a sort of they think it gives them a green light, but the same people would have been doing this sort of stuff before Brexit as well. It's just that we're seeing it highlighted more now, I think. But let me be very clear here. I think these people are worthless cards. Um, the report talks about 20 young men. It should be rephrased 20 worthless cards. I think gangs are the lowest forms of life around. I think they're absolute class A scumbags. I've experienced it. I've been attacked by a gang before. I know what that's like. It's a horrible experience. The sort of mental anguish it causes, the sort of anxiety it causes, it's horrible. So I hope these worthless little, I was going to say rats, but that is an insult to rats. I hope they're hunted down. I hope they're shitting themselves. Um, if they haven't been caught yet, I hope they're shitting themselves. I want to see people like this dragged out of their beds and done raids. And I want to see them incarcerated. I think they're filth, with evidence, of course. Make sure you get the right people. But I've no sympathy for gangs. It is the absolute epitome of cowardice, and I'm pleased that the man appeared to be in a stable condition, and it seemed like his injuries were not life-threatening. But no one should have to go through that. And I always feel disgusted when I hear cases like this. Um, I do believe in absolute the giving the public a right to self-defense. So if I'm not saying people should go around carrying weapons, an American style gun system would not work in this country. I think it would be a recipe for disaster. But I do think that this sort of crime we need to show no mercy. No doubt some idiot judge will let them off the hook. But I do believe crimes like this, at the very least, the people responsible should get an absolute minimum of 5 years. Absolute minimum. Personally, I'd propose a lot longer than that. Um, and to those who think that, oh, we should just understand them and they should get a tap on the wrist, those people are deluded. You cannot show mercy to this sort of crime, this sort of cowardly, um, bullying sort of crime. It's disgusting. And personally, I think a good punishment would be to force them to wear t-shirts saying, I am a card. I am a card. I was part of a gang that attacked an individual. I am a worthless card. Please laugh at me. I really do think that a judicial style humiliation would be appropriate. And this isn't a contradiction of the video I made earlier, because I'm not calling for public vigilantism, but I think in the judicial process, through the rule of law, with evidence, yeah, I do think that these sort of crimes should receive a punishment that forces the offender to think twice. These little rats do this because they think they'll get away with it. And the sad reality is, probably about 70% of British judges are clueless. They're living in bubbles. They continue to enact pathetically soft sentences, and this enrages the public, and rightly so. Um, no one should have to go through this. On this occasion, the victim was Polish, but British people have been victims of these sort of crimes as well. I hate gang members like this. I hate mobs that attack individuals. It's an absolute epitome of cowardice, and I think they should be caught and thrown in a cell. I really do. This is absolutely a case where a custodial sentence is the only appropriate penalty. Some idiot judge, no doubt, will give them community service, which is bullshit. Um, I would like also the likes of the Green Party to justify why they think uh, people like this should not go to prison, because that is a position of the Green Party. The Green Party are an anti-prison party, and there's other political parties out there that also feel that way. And I would like to show them a case like this and say, how can you rationally say a crime like this should not result in a custodial sentence? So yeah, that's it really. There isn't really much purpose of this video, just to kind of, yeah, because I just feel like venting a little bit. I feel disgusted when I read things like that, and unfortunately, it's not an isolated incident. But I would really, really emphasize and underscore the point that the vast majority of people who voted Leave are not like this, and they would abhor this. Um, and certainly the gangs in Britain are not only white, there's black gangs in London who are equally cowardly and equally despicable. There's Asian gangs, it's cowardice is universal among gangs. All gangs are scum as far as I'm concerned. Um, and as far as I'm concerned, the only approach to this is an absolute hardline approach. I think anyone who wants to argue that these sort of crimes should result in a tap in the wrist, they're deluded. Just utterly deluded. That's not only insulting to the victim, it sends the offender the message that it isn't serious. So some idiot judge gives him a custodial sentence, excuse me, community sentence. All that does is say, oh, well, it wasn't really that serious. And that's being reflected in your soft sentence. Because a community sentence for a crime like this is not appropriate. Um, I hope everyone involved in this is caught. Unfortunately, it will probably just be the ringleaders. I think they should be interrogated and forced to tell where the others are. And I think they should be hunted down, dragged out of their beds, and treated like the vermin that they are. Because when it comes to this sort of crime, I'm ultra conservative and I don't mind admitting that. I think these sort of gang members are scum of the earth. I'm not even suggesting that they're a professional gang. They're probably just idiotic yobs. If you happen to live in this area of Armley and Leeds, do the right thing. If you happen to know these people, do the right thing, turn them in. You're not a grass, you're a decent member of the community, because that young man shouldn't have had to go through that. No one should. So do the right thing and inform the police. You could do it anonymously. They won't know, they won't find out. So just please do that, do the right thing, because otherwise they walk free and they get away with it.